Hi, everyone. Judge Andrew Napolitano here for Judging Freedom. Today is Wednesday, June 4th, 2025. Phil Giraldi is here with us. Does Bibi Netanyahu have to listen to Donald Trump? But first, this. While the markets are giving us whiplash, have you seen the price of gold? It's soaring. In the past 12 months, gold has risen to more than $3,000 an ounce. I'm so glad I bought my gold. It's not too late for you to buy yours. The same experts that predicted gold at $3,200 an ounce now predict gold at $4,500 or more in the next year. What's driving the price higher? Paper currencies. All around the world, they are falling in value. Big money is in panic as falling currencies shrink the value of their paper wealth. That's why big banks and billionaires are buying gold in record amounts. As long as paper money keeps falling, they'll keep buying, and gold will keep rising. So do what I did. Call my friends at Lear Capital. You'll have a great conversation, and they'll send you very helpful information. Learn how you can store gold in your IRA tax and penalty free or have it sent directly to your doorstep. There's zero pressure to buy and you have a 100% risk-free purchase guarantee. It's time to see if gold is right for you. Call 800-511-4620, 800-511-4620 or go to LearJudgeNap.com and tell them your friend the judge sent you. Phil Giraldi, welcome here, my dear friend. Thank you, as always, for accommodating my schedule. What is your take on the Ukrainian, American and NATO-led Ukrainian proxy drone destruction? How much damage did it do in Russia?
Well, it depends on whom you talk to or what you take as the best evidence. I noticed that Larry Johnson, for example, tends to or at least in his initial reporting, tended to downgrade the damage actually done. There have been some satellite photos and other things since that time, which I think rather suggest that maybe the damage was more extreme. But again, we're not talking about lethal destruction of the Russian bomber fleet. We're talking about possibly significant damage, but the damage is more so, I think, psychological. Trump and Putin were speaking together today, and Putin made it very clear that he will retaliate. Now, what that means, it would suggest to me that this means retaliation in kind in some way. That might mean striking Kiev or other targets that up until now have not been viable. So it's an escalation, no question about it. One thing that it's kind of surprising me a lot in the analysis of it is I remember when this war began that I was hearing assessments from people in the intelligence community saying that Ukraine and Russia are kind of twin brothers, nationally speaking, and that Ukraine has significant, shall we say, clandestine intelligence assets inside Russia, and vice versa, of course. So this is another element in it where a lot of the background to this operation could have been expedited, shall we say, by people that were already on the ground.
Here's President Zelensky boasting about this. Now, almost everybody that has been on this show agrees with you. We haven't spoken to Ritter yet about it. We will tomorrow. That this was a PR stunt and not significant damage. But here's what he had to say. Chris, cut number 10.
Europe, together with America, has better weapons than Russia. We also have stronger tactical solutions. Our Operation Spiderweb yesterday proved that. Russia must feel what its losses mean. That is what will push it toward diplomacy. And when Russia takes losses in this war, it's obvious to everyone that Ukraine is the one holding the line, not just for itself, but for all of Europe.
But the SBU, the Ukrainian intelligence services, why we call them services, but they're intel, have possibly done this without CIA, MI6, and Mossad knowledge and assistance?
I would have to answer no to that. That's not to say the whole thing may have been or must have been a contrivance by those other intelligence services, but certainly they would lend or they would represent the difference, enabling this to be pulled off at all. And I would have to believe that that's true, and I would have to believe that that CIA has people embedded in the Ukrainian service, and the Brits probably even more so. I don't know about the Israelis, but the Israelis have had their paws all over what's been going on in the war between Ukraine and Russia because of their hatred for Russian, what they claim Russia did to Jews back in the time of the czars, and this kind of thinking.
I'm going to put up in a minute, but first a little conversation with you, a full screen of the Truth Social post that President Trump posted just about an hour ago about revealing the existence of his telephone call today with President Putin. But is it conceivable that President Trump did not know about this? I mean, tell me how these presidential findings work. Let's say Joe Biden signed a presidential finding authorizing this very attack a year and a half ago. Wouldn't CIA officials in the Trump administration have been informed of it? Wouldn't John Ratcliffe have known about it? Wouldn't Tulsi Gabbard have known about it? Shouldn't they have told Pete Hegseth and Marco Rubio? Shouldn't one of them have told the President of the United States?
Well, it's unimaginable that they, if they were aware of this document, and I am saying a big if there, because you know how many pages of proposals and so on and so forth are churned out by the intelligence agencies and by the Pentagon, and there is an awareness issue here, I think, and there could be a bit of deniability as a result of that. But the fact is, nevertheless, somebody had to know about this, and somebody who had to know about this, one of the people you just named, had a responsibility or have a responsibility to report to the president with it. As soon as they became aware that this operation was active and what it entailed, they would be morally responsible to go to the president and lay it out in front of him. So I find that, yeah, there are a lot of holes in what's coming out of the argument.
Well, which is worse, that Trump knew or that he didn't know? That they told him or that they didn't tell him?
It's pretty awful either way. It just depends who you're pointing the finger at. It's if Trump is lying and he knew about it, that's pretty awful. And if Trump didn't know about it because other people are covering it up, I mean, that's pretty awful too. I'd like to see a whole bunch of these heads roll.
Here's the full screen from Truth Social. Now, Larry Johnson says it's been taken down. Chris says it's still up there. This was posted a little before 2 o'clock this afternoon. The President of the United States. I just finished speaking by telephone with President Vladimir Putin of Russia. The call lasted approximately 1 hour and 15 minutes. We discussed the attack on Russia's docked airplanes by Ukraine and also various other attacks that have been taking place by both sides. It was a good conversation, but not a conversation that will lead to immediate peace. President Putin did say, and very strongly, that he will have to respond to the recent attack on the airfields. We also discussed Iran and the fact that time is running out on Iran's decision pertaining to nuclear weapons, which must be made quickly. I stated to President Putin that Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon, and on this, I believe we were in agreement. Nothing in there about what he knew and when he knew it. I just wonder if heads are about to roll in that inner circle. I wonder if Putin said, "Hey, Donald, you want me to do this to you? Why would you do this to us while we're having negotiations? Two can play at this game, Donald."
Well, I think actually three can play at this game because you can bet $1 that the Russians, if this involves the United States or Britain or Mossad or all three together with the Ukrainians, there would have been leaks all over the place that the Russians would have been able to pick up. So they probably know more than we Americans know right now in terms of what exactly happened and how it
How
played
could
out.
Russian intel have missed this, Phil? If the stories are true, a dozen trucks drove into Russia with these drones inside. Somebody opened up the boxes, assembled them, and somebody removed a removable roof on top of the trucks, and then remotely they were set off. How could Russian intel, which is as good as ours, correct me if I'm wrong, have not known about this?
Well, having been a collector of intel in the field myself, I would say that intelligence is not always perfect. You might know that something is coming up, just as the Israelis back in October had lots of indications that something was going to happen and didn't respond to it. Obviously, there was a political decision by Netanyahu not to do so. But this is the same kind of thing where you have a bit of this and a bit of that, and you picked up this and you picked up that, but you might not know exactly when it's going to take place or what some of the instrumentalities enabling you to do it are. So I wouldn't necessarily go too far on the idea that just because you have a top intelligence service, you're always capable of getting everything.
Right, right. All right. Let's transition over to Gaza. Are the Israelis still killing Gazans when they line up for food? Are the Israelis still engaged in strategic starvation by limiting severely the food and medical supplies that are allowed into Gaza?
Well, they're doing both of those things, but I think it's actually worse than that because some of the mass killings that have taken place since allegedly this new mechanism was put in place to bring in supplies have really been provocations. They've been enticement type operations where they tell the Palestinians to go to a certain place or go by a certain route to get to that place. And lo and behold, what happens? They start getting shot. This is the Israeli way of going to war. You line up a bunch of civilians and you massacre them. And the fact that the United States is complicit in this, complicit even to the point of the monitors that are on the ground there are Americans, or at least some of them are. And how a president of the United States can sit back and watch this, and something in which the U.S. is clearly involved, and let it happen. These are war crimes. These are worse than war crimes. This is a genocide. This is a plan to kill 2 million people if it's necessary.
Are Smotrich and Ben-Gvir going to get their wishes, or will at some point a conscience develop into military resistance on the part of some government to stop Netanyahu and his crazies from their continued slaughter?
Well, I think that's a possibility, and I think you're seeing some rattling and going on among governments in Europe that are afraid to cross Netanyahu, but they're becoming increasingly afraid to cross their own electorates. We see like Starmer in Britain. The next election coming up in Britain, he's going to be massacred, and this is what's stirring up at the bottom. And I watched the European media very closely, and the opinion polls are very strongly showing in every major country in Europe, and I'm talking about France, Germany, Britain, and Italy, and Spain. They're running all the same way, very heavily against Israel, very heavily against their government's roles. Spain and Ireland and some other countries have already taken steps to stop armament shipping to Israel. So this could happen, and I hope it will, because I can't see Donald Trump doing it. He's too terrified of the Israel lobby and its political power and its money.
So Trump will tell Netanyahu not to attack Iran, but he will not tell yet Netanyahu to stop slaughtering the Gazans. Is that your view?
My view is that Netanyahu might do both. This is something where, in fact, if you really think about it, what inhibits Donald Trump from taking those steps? Well, the one in Gaza is widely popular because it's just so disgusting. But he's terrified of the domestic consequences of turning the Israeli lobby and the Christian Zionists, which make up most of his political base, loose on him. And so he's not going to be inclined to do that. Now, Iran is a different story. You have congressmen like the beloved Lindsey Graham, Ted Cruz, and others who have basically put together a coalition saying that if you cut any kind of deal with Iran that allows any enrichment, we're going to overturn it. And this is probably something that's true. It would happen. And so Trump had his hands tied there too. And he's not going to be able to come up with a plan or a proposal for Iran that's acceptable to Iran. So we're back to zero.
Where are we on the enrichment? It seems to me that first Witkoff said we'll allow enrichment for civilian purposes, some number, 3.5. And then the neocons around Trump made Witkoff, persuaded Trump to have Witkoff withdraw that. Now the latest is there is going to be some enrichment, but the number is not clear, or the duration of it is not clear. I don't see the Iranians agreeing to anything that limits their ability to develop nuclear enrichment, not for military purposes, but for domestic purposes. What kind of a country would do that?
Yeah, well, I absolutely agree with you. And also there's this funny little plan that's being cooked up that basically would involve the Saudis and the Emirates in some kind of joint enrichment program in which they're all looking over each other's shoulders on behalf of the United States. I mean, this stuff gets so goofy. It's hard to imagine that this is something that people consider. Are there actually people who consider this a foreign policy? I mean, this is a comic opera.
Wow. I'm going to get back to Ukraine again, just because of some breaking news. RT, Russia Today, you and I and the audience are familiar with that, reports that President Putin released a video statement, quote, "How can we negotiate with those resorting to terrorism?" Now that's the quote. It's unclear if the "those" refers to Ukraine or if the "those" refers to the United States. The statement goes on, as Kyiv pleads for ceasefires to rearm and regroup, it keeps attacking civilians. Then he, referring to Putin, says that the Kyiv regime is turning into a, in caps, terrorist organization as battlefield defeats mount. I guess this is some sort of a preparation. You can weigh in on this, and please do, for the Russian people to anticipate a massive retaliation. What do you think?
Well, I think most observers would agree that Putin has been kind of careful in not really unleashing his military might against civilian targets. Now, I'm suspecting that he's feeling that, all right, the rules have been broken here now, that there have been some consistent attacks targeting civilians, including these train derailments that have just taken place inside Russia that have killed a number of civilians. So he's maybe saying the gloves are now off. Now, it doesn't necessarily mean that he's going to be going crazy and targeting civilians, but it means I think he has to establish some kind of quid pro quo toward Zelensky, who in that his comments that you just cited a little while ago is completely out of touch with reality. But somebody's going to have a wake up for Zelensky, and I appreciate that Zelensky, if he goes soft, will probably be killed by his own people. But the fact is that it's this kind of game that's going back and forth, and the U.S. is the only player that can, and this is true of Gaza too, that can step in and actually play a decisive role in terms of shifting it in such a way that the Ukrainians and Zelensky are going to have to see that they're losing and they have to make a deal.
Putin must be under a lot of pressure from the public, from elites, from generals, from intel, from his own advisors to do something with, I don't want to say ferocity, but with certainty and clarity.
Yeah, I agree absolutely. I think he's got to send a message here. And the message has to be decisive enough where Ukraine will decide, hey, it's maybe a bad idea to blow up a civilian train or things like this. So let's see how we play it out. Putin is in my opinion, a smart guy and has been very careful, I think, really up till now in terms of most of his moves.
Phil Giraldi, thank you, my dear friend. Much appreciated. Thank you for your time. Thank you for letting me go across the board here. We'll look forward to seeing you again next week.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Coming up tomorrow, Thursday, June 5th, Professor Gilbert Doctorow at 8 in the morning, Scott Ritter at 11 in the morning. If we can find him, I'll hear about this. Max Blumenthal at 2 in the afternoon, Professor John Mearsheimer at 3 in the afternoon, Colonel Lawrence Wilkerson at 4 in the afternoon, and from God knows where, Pepe Escobar at 4:30 in the afternoon. A rich and full day for you. Thank you for watching. Judge Napolitano for Judging Freedom.